What's up guys, Asian here again with the theory crafting video, and today I'd like to discuss how to recover from your rotation when you have to do stuff like mechanics or resing somebody in a trial. So a lot of the parses that you see online are usually from dummy parses. You do see a couple of trial fights from here and there, looking at parses there. But one thing that you're always going to notice, especially if you run vet trials yourself, is that sometimes things go south and people start dying, or you have to do mechanics, and then you're kind of left wondering, well, where do I go from there? So dummy parsers are very good for practicing what your rotation ideally should be like, but it doesn't really prepare you for what happens when you have to res somebody and you kind of have to break your rotation, or if you have to play mechanics and you have to break your rotation that way. So this video is kind of try to explain what I do and what I think a lot of people do should do, I should say, when you have to break out of your rotation, when you have to play mechanics or res somebody. So I'm on my stand DK right now. So we're going to be hitting this dummy here. Apparently there is a bard in my house and I don't see. Okay, whatever. So let's say that you just finished resing somebody. So I'm gonna just do a little bit of my rotation. Might as well eat food. All right. So let's say I'm fighting the boss. I'm doing my rotation. Yada yada. Right. I'm doing my rotation. And oh no, somebody just died. So what do I do now? I break out my rotation. I go back at res 1,000, 2 1,000, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So now I have to go back to my rotation. So what do I do now? So what I do is I take a look at what dots are currently running or not running and basically reapply them based on priority. So for stamina, your priority dots are always going to be in this order: Endless Hail, Poison Injection, and then Caltrops. So those three dots are always going to be pretty much near the top of your DPS. So if you take a look at a saved parse I have, you can see that Endless Hail, Razor Caltrops, Venomous Claws, and Poison Injection are my top 4 dots. My heavy attacks are up there as well, but we're going to be ignoring them for right now because that's just kind of a weave between between your abilities there. So just based off of this, we know that if I break out of my rotation and I have to go back to the boss, the first thing I'm going to do is, what dots do I still have up? Do I still have Endless Hail up? Do I have Razor Caltrops up? What bar am I on? So let's practice this again. Alright, so we're doing our rotation, We're fighting the serpent, so he's doing World Shaper. 3, 2, 1, and we have to go, so we break out, so we do a break, and we come back in. So we see right now that, so you can see there that what I did was I went straight into my bow bar and reapplied all of my bow bar dots because those are very important. So we have World Shaper again, we got to break out, and we go back in. So I can see here that my dots are going to go down, so I decided to basically skip out of Rending Slashes in favor of getting my bow dots back onto the ground. And I also made sure to reapply Deadly Cloak. And that's just because Deadly Cloak, is a big damage mitigator, so you kind of want to make sure you have that up too. So here we go, 3, 2, 1, World Shaper again. Now I have to go back in, so before I go back in, I reapply Deadly Cloak in order to make sure I have a mitigation up, and then I try to reapply all my dots again in that same priority order. So that's kind of what you want to be mindful of when you have to play mechanics or you have to res somebody. You always have what I like to call a prioritization when it comes to abilities. So for stamina users, it's always going to usually end up being your Endless Hail, Poison Injection, and Caltrops, because like I showed in that one parse, those are typically up in the top 3, top 4 DPS dealers, especially your Endless Hail and Caltrops. So you definitely want to make sure that you want to keep those dots up. So if you have 2 seconds left on them, it might be worth overcasting them just to make sure you aren't dropping your dots off. Then on a Stamina DK, you want to make sure to get your Venomous Claws back up, because that's a very powerful dot. For a Stamina Templar, you're going to want to make sure your Power of the Light is up. That's just to help out your group DPS. You want to make sure Power of the Light is up. And for Stamina Nightblades, Samurai Blades are a little bit more tricky because you do have that bow proc to deal with. So if you have the bow proc, definitely try to get it off. If not, just go back to that same prioritization of skills. For a Stamina Nightblade, it's obviously going to go your bow proc first and then your dots. So, if you're in the middle of casting, let's say you just res somebody, so you just res somebody and then you go back, you have 3 light attacks down, so you only need 2 more. So you do, your light attack, your endless hail, and then you light attack into your poison injection. You should just swap right back to your front bar, cast your bow proc, and then go back and reapply your caltrops. So you kind of want to get into a sense of which abilities are your priorities. So like I said, stamina, endless hail, poison injection, caltrops are all going to be high priority. Then depending on your class, stam DKs have venomous claws, Stamplars have Power of the Light, so you kind of want to take a look at what your highest DPS source comes from. For Magicka DPS, it's typically going to end up being Block Aid. You always want to have Block Aid down no matter what Magicka DPS you are. Then of course you're going to want to take a look at which dot is going to be highest up on your DPS list. So for example, on a Magicka Sorcerer, you want to make sure you have Liquid Lightning down, because that's a very powerful dot to have. For Nightblades, you're going to want to have Path down as much as you can, and of course you also want to prioritize bow procs over laying down your dots as a Magicka Nightblade. For Magicka DKs, I believe it is it's either Eruption or Burning Embers. I don't have a Mag DK parse saved up, but that's something you want to keep in mind when you do have to break out of your rotation. Just figure out which dots you need to reapply based on your prioritization list, and then go right back into the rotation at basically the best point you can. So what I tend to do, and this is just because I find it to be very simple and very easy to do this, is if I have to break out of my rotation, no matter where I was in my rotation, I will typically just go into my bow bar, put down all my dots on my bow bar, and then go back into my front bar rotation immediately after applying my priority dots, if I have any, on my front bar right away. So typically I use Noxious Breath first and then Venomous Claws on my Stam DK, but if I have to break rotation, I'll do it the other way around. I'll do Claws and then Noxious Breath. So that's kind of how I deal with it. I always, on Stamina Tune at least, go straight to my back bar, put all my back bar dots down, even if it means I end up overcasting them. It's kind of the same thing for Magicka DPS as well. When I have to go back, I typically just put down my Elemental Blockade and then go back to my front bar and try to finish out my front bar rotation. Or if my other back bar dots aren't completely are done, then I obviously reapply my back bar dots and then go back to my front bar rotation. So that's kind of how I do things. You can do things however you want. You can just kind of go back to your rotation where you were before, where you left off. You can basically completely reset your rotation and start all the way from the beginning if that's easier for you to deal with. But the key takeaway point that I want you guys to basically take from this video is have a prioritization when it comes to abilities when you die and are rezzed, or when you have to break out of your rotation for whatever reason, because that's going to help you get your sense of where you are in your rotation back, and it helps maintain your DPS, because if you have your priority dots up, at least you'll be able to maintain your DPS no matter what. So if I have to res somebody, for instance, I will re-up my Blockade and Liquid Lightning on my Magsork, or Blockade and Twisting Path, or Endless Hail, Poison Injection, Caltrops before I go to res somebody, just so I can make sure that I have my priority dots down while I'm resing, so I'm not giving up too much DPS while I'm resing somebody, because as we all know, and I'm sure you guys have all heard, dead DPS is is 0 DPS, or negative DPS because you're taking away somebody else from actually DPSing. So that's basically it for this video. Hope you guys found it informative. I believe Fear Turbo has a pretty good explanation specifically on Stam DKs on how to get back into your rotation and how he prioritizes dots. God, that word's difficult to say. So I'll find that video and put it down in the description below for you guys so you can reference that. So hope you guys found this video informative nonetheless, and I will see you guys in the next dungeon.